you to our sponsors of the Inside Story Hunters podcast. A big shout out to Chad Hill of Term Provider, home of Big Lou, Tiffany Wondros, CNR Services, Michael Valletta of Quick Cuts Media. Don't forget to subscribe at youtube.com, where you can follow our weekly episodes and get an automatic link to listen to our next guest sharing a part of their incredible inside story. So subscribe or listen on any podcast channel to your Inside Story Hunters podcast. Thanks for following us. Thanks for supporting us. Hello, Insiders. It's Laurie with a story here with the amazing Chad Hill, who I forgot to put the red carpet out, walking into Temple Beth Shalom this morning where we're capturing the story. So
nice.
Thank you for being here, amazing Chad Hill.
Thank you for having me, Laurie.
Absolutely. So it's Chad's first time being on a podcast, and I would just say I feel honored that he's about to help me unveil his powerful inside story. And we're coming from a place that you are the president here at Temple Beth Shalom.
Yes, ma'am.
And just this morning I learned that you once upon a time had a website called Unbiased Faith. What a perfect way for us to segue into your powerful story of your journey on how did you arrive here at Temple Beth Shalom?
Well, it's a long story, but I grew up Christian, went to church every Sunday, every Wednesday. Family was Christian, so raised in that religion, and got married. Met my wife at Bible school, training to be a pastor.
Amazing.
And we lived in Joplin, Missouri at the time. And we were associate pastors, children's pastors at a church for about 7 years, and just started having some questions about things that I had learned growing up, things that I thought the Bible said that maybe the Bible didn't actually say, parts of verses that contradicted other parts of verses or contradicted my theology. And so we started asking questions. The particular denomination I was involved in wasn't too fond of questions. There's a lot of these are our tenets of faith. If you don't like those, go somewhere else kind of methodology. Mm-hmm. So I started out slow, started asking some questions and different questions about who Jesus was and the New Testament, the Christian Bible, things like that. And eventually it led to a departure from that church, and not a good departure, but a departure. And looking back on it, I was pretty arrogant and cocky and probably didn't handle things always the way that I should in trying to ask questions and get answers. But I didn't feel like I was getting good responses to questions. I was getting, don't ask that, we don't ask that, I can't believe you're asking that, versus this is what it says, this is what we believe, this is how you reconcile. Mm-hmm. It was more of do as we say type of approach. So my wife and I left Missouri, moved to Florida about 17 years ago to be closer to her family. And we, at the time, were going to a Messianic congregation, which is where we met Michael Walker, who's also here at Temple Beth Shalom, and how I ended up employed at Term Provider, which we talked about before.
Now you're a managing partner. Mm-hmm.
Employed there 17 years ago, now managing partner of Term Provider. But Unbiased Faith, I just started asking questions, reading, studying. I couldn't get enough books, and just read and started putting my own ideas out there on the website. It was an interesting website. It was about the time that it was after the time the Matrix movie came out, and so I designed the website based on the Matrix theme, the red pill, the blue pill, you're living in a dream world type of thing, because at that point in time, I started to believe that everything I'd been taught as a child was biased. Mm. We used a version of the Bible that was a thought-for-thought translation of the Bible versus a word-for-word translation. And so when you have a translator translating one language into another, and they're not translating this word, this word, this word, they're translating the idea of the sentence. Well, there's a lot of bias that can seep into that, and I started to find that in the Christian scriptures.
You were talking about, I think there was a word in the Greek mythology, something with and or.
Yeah, there's a lot of places in the Christian Bible where it appears in most versions of the Christian Bible that Jesus is arguing with the Pharisees. You have heard it said that they taught you this, but I tell you this, almost setting up a contradiction. But most of the time, it should be translated, they said this to you, moreover, or in addition, I say this, because a lot of times Jesus is making the requirements stricter, especially on things like marriage and divorce. He would say something like, it's not a direct quote, but he would say something like, you have heard it said that a man can divorce his wife for any reason. But I say to you, and he made it stricter, that if a man divorces his wife for any reason other than adultery, he's committing adultery and he's causing her to commit adultery. So just a little word in our language, and, but, moreover, in addition to, can make a big difference in a lot of different sentences in the Bible. And so I started asking questions about translation, asking questions about why were the Jews in the first century who were following Christianity still keeping the law of Moses, still offering sacrifices, still participating in temple worship 30, 40, 50 years after Jesus had died. And as I asked those questions, it just became clear in my mind that I had not been given what I felt was the truth, that I was given a biased version of history. Mm-hmm. And my job now was to uncover bias.
And you lead everywhere in your life from an unbiased position. Yeah.
I try to use that in management of people and raising my kids, in that, I don't always see things as they are. We see things a little glossy sometimes, or rosy, or negative, and it helps to hear the other side's perspective. And we don't take enough time, and I've been guilty of this also, we don't take enough time to hear the other side's perspective, whether it's religion, family issues, husband, wife, politics, God forbid we talk about politics.
Yes.
Nobody takes enough time to actually hear what the other person is saying and see it from their perspective, and then try to understand what the reality is. And too many people, you call names, or I don't like that, I don't believe that. And so you cut off relationships, or cut off friendships, or potential friendships, because you refuse to realize that you have your own bias, as does the other person. And somewhere in the middle is probably the truth.
And so Temple Beth Shalom is a tiny but mighty congregation, right? And it's at the beach. And it's a little bit of a hidden secret. So part of why the Inside Story Hunters and Laurie with a Story, just God had a plan, as Rabbi D says, and I was just along for the ride. And I've got the blessing, the opportunity to meet you and to know the story. God had his hand on it.
Sure.
But you could have chosen a lot of congregations. There are not many options here in Fort Walton Beach.
Right.
But to end up, you taught religious school. You didn't just join. Your family could have gone anywhere. Or is that the truth? I mean, why here?
So as we started asking questions, we ended up meeting some other families here on the Emerald Coast, like Michael Walker, he was involved here. And we started having Bible study weekly. Instead of going to a church or a formal thing, we just started meeting together with 4 or 5 families at one point, and then it was 10 or 15 families on a weekly basis in Destin or in Niceville, different places where we would meet. And talking about, we would read the Torah portion of the week. We were all kind of headed towards Judaism. We just didn't know we were headed there. We were on the path, as it were. And so we would meet and talk and study and ask questions. And we tried to go from the approach that no question was out of bounds, that we could ask, anybody could ask any question. Let's look into it. Let's figure it out. Let's find the truth is what we were trying at. We didn't know at the time that finding the truth would be a very, very hard endeavor, a very lifelong endeavor, I guess I would say. But after a couple of years of that, you run into the same issues. Different people have different beliefs. Certain questions were out of bounds, and everybody kind of finds their own path. We used to liken it to exits on a highway. We were all on the same highway. Some people got off at this exit and kept their theology there. Other people kept going, got off at the next exit, those kinds of things. Well, the exit we got off on was actually Michael and Gina Walker visited Temple Beth Shalom probably 12 years ago now. A week later, we came, my wife and 2 kids who were very young at the time, and we were welcomed right in. So it was a small congregation. They utilized a student rabbi program where a student rabbi from the Reform College in Cincinnati would send students down who were in their 3rd or 4th year of college to teach for the week or to lead Shabbat services. And so every other week or so, a student rabbi would be in town, and they usually would be here for every other week for 2 years, and then we'd get a new student rabbi. So we started, I think my youngest was 4 years old, and my oldest was 7 or 8. And So we got them in religious school. We were on the path towards conversion. We started meeting with the student rabbi. His name is Aaron Boxt. And 6-8 months of learning, studying towards conversion. They were gracious enough to let us in, even though they knew we'd been pastors and Michael had been a music minister in the church. They welcomed us in. I'm sure there was a little trepidation about what are the Christians doing here at the synagogue.
And now here you are the president.
But now here I am the president. So we got our kids into religious school. We converted. A year or two later, Michael and I started running the religious school. And eventually that led to me being the chair of the religious school for about 8 years.
Amazing.
While my kids were growing up, becoming bar mitzvah at 13, which now is 4 years behind me for the youngest one and 8 or 9 years from the oldest one. So we met this congregation. They loved us. They let us come right in. Obviously, immediately let us get involved in religious school. They saw that we were honest and we weren't here to steal people or try to move people back to Christianity.
Yes.
And over a period of time, Michael joined the board of directors. My wife joined the board of directors. And then I was asked to either join the board of directors or be the president about 5 years ago. And honestly, I was a little concerned about it because my impression of the way boards worked in the church in the past was that they really didn't kind of do anything. They just kind of sat there and paid the bills. The pastor or the rabbi kind of ran the show. But I learned that in Reform Judaism especially, the board handles all the business things, decides what programs are going to be done. And it felt like a good opportunity to make a run at trying to revitalize Temple Beth Shalom. 20 years ago, Temple Beth Shalom had a full-time rabbi, and there was a parting of the ways with some people. Some people liked him, some people didn't. And then they went back to the student program. And over the years, this is a military town. People come, people go a lot.
Yes.
The congregation is aging. And so it went from, 75, 80, 90 membership families to 45, 50. And the religious school got smaller and smaller. And we started looking at ways to, how do we revitalize this? How do we get more people engaged with Judaism here locally? How do we revitalize Judaism with younger families so that we can make sure that Temple Beth Shalom is here for the next generation and the next generation, and not drop the ball and end up with Fort Walton Beach not having a Jewish president at some point in the future. So actually, one of our student rabbis gave me the idea of finding a retired or a part-time rabbi that we could hire, and we went to the organization within Reform Judaism that handles that, and they said, yeah, maybe you might be able to find something like that. So we got a bunch of people together. We started raising funds. We got pledges for a certain amount of money for a 3-year contract, which is what's typical in Judaism. And we went to market. And we were lucky enough to meet Rabbi Del Cal, who was just coming off of another posting out west. And we had a good feel. We had a number. This was right before COVID started, so we had we had him out. We listened, we learned, and the board decided to hire him at the end of 2019 because COVID started in 2020. So it's hard to believe it's been 2 years ago.
What a time to make an investment. What a time to invite in a spiritual leader full-time,
right,
and come together. And I don't think we want to dig into that because I feel like you and I have talked about, we're feeding the difficulties that no one needs to be reminded anymore every day of what COVID-19 has done.
Right.
But this congregation is on an upward growth movement.
Right.
And talk about that from the position of, the uniques about this synagogue. And I'm stealing your thunder, but one of the things that I thought was so powerful that I wish I had found, I'm grateful for the congregation in Tennessee, that the family who raised my sons and the village who raised us, but the uniques of having that one-on-one education. When you're tiny but mighty, that, a family comes in and says, where's your religious school? Who's going to teach my kids? They need, I'd like them to be bar or bat mitzvah. Having that individuality and that loving, it's like a family member just grabbing them and saying, I'll take you through the journey. Yeah,
one of the positives that comes out of COVID, we don't want to talk about the negatives all the time, is Zoom and the virtual learning ability. I'm not necessarily a big fan of virtual services, although we do provide them. I don't want people to ever replace in-person worship with virtual worship in their living room in their pajamas with the tray of food in front of them, like an entertainment program. But with a full-time rabbi and with 6 or 7 students now, we have the time. He has the time to do individual training. Plus, we have a number of people prior to having a rabbi, a number of people volunteered. I volunteered, taught Hebrew. A number of people in the congregation, especially Chuck London, has been here forever.
Yes.
Helped every single kid who's become bar or bat mitzvah in the last 20 years learn their Hebrew, learn their prayers, and get up in front of the congregation and do a fantastic job. So we've got tools here in the congregation that are willing to meet with people one-on-one, whether that's in person or via Zoom. And Rabbi Delcal has been meeting with, I think, 3 or 4 kids right now in prep for bar mitzvahs, and 2 that have already happened since he's been here. And Zoom has been a vital tool in being able to make sure people's schedules work out. But then also having the commitment to actually come to the synagogue, read from the Torah, be taught by Rabbi Delcal one-on-one is something that a larger synagogue I don't think can really offer. Unless they have multiple rabbis.
And this is not something that normally happens, not in my experience, in my journey, in my lifetime, being, visiting synagogues or being a member of. But I came here Hanukkah weekend some time ago and walked through the door and people walked over to greet me, not because I was a strange face and trying to learn who I was. No one mentioned membership, nothing. They just thought, ooh, who are you?
Right.
And then having families, fighting over where I'm going to sit when they found out I was just visiting for the weekend.
Right.
They welcome you immediately into their home, and they want to feed you. They want to love on you. They want to interact with you. I don't believe the synagogue is ever going to be 60 million members. Maybe it will.
Right.
But I think there's something powerful and unique. It's a very special place. And so elaborate of what is it like to be a member of Temple Beth Shalom right now?
Well, we are in the South, so we're laid back. There's not a lot of aggressive selling going on to the congregation, dues, donations, those kinds of things.
Although the plate's not being passed.
The plate's not being passed every week. So we don't spend a lot of time on that. We do expect that people will, become members and join and all the stuff that you should do to support the synagogue, because there are bills to pay.
Yeah, it's a business.
But the main goal, I think, is just to have people to commune together. Fellowship, I guess, is the word. To just have people together practicing Judaism the best they can and working within the congregation to build friendships and have friends for their kids, so that the Jewish experience isn't lost. Because we are, diaspora is not a great word, but we are kind of out in the frontier here in Fort Walton. Pensacola has a good sized synagogue, but they're an hour and 20 minutes away. Panama City synagogue's about the same size as ours. So to really go to a big synagogue, you got to go to Atlanta or Tallahassee or maybe Mobile. And so in this area, it's more about relationships. It's more about friendships and having people with Judaism in common. So there's no pressure. It's just about friendship and family and getting together to really, truly just worship in the way only Judaism can do.
And the location, though, what's phenomenal is the airports are so easy, accessible.
Right.
That I thought that I would come to this area and there would be more talk about retirement, which is really just doing what you want to rather than the have-tos.
Right.
But that's a fallacy now. There's over approximately 1,000 people moving into Florida every day now, right? And maybe that number isn't that high, but it's close. And the point being that you don't have to be at retirement stage. You love the beach, you want the water, you need the outdoors. You have Shabbat on the beach on Friday nights. Pretty cool.
Right.
But you can work and grow and have a career in a business.
Right. There's, everybody thinks of South Florida when they think about moving to Florida, and North Florida shouldn't be forgotten because, the real estate prices are still, comparatively speaking, to where people would be moving from, like California, New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania. Real estate is still very accessible. People can work from anywhere. That's another benefit of COVID. That many jobs, very good paying jobs, you can work from home. I know half of my insurance business works from home. And so you can work anywhere, and you can live anywhere, and there's no There's no income tax in Florida. Property taxes are still relatively low compared to those other places I just mentioned. And you're right close to the beach. You've got everything that you need. And it's kind of a laid-back lifestyle. You don't have the same traffic issues. There are some traffic during the summer with people coming into Destin. But there's all kinds of places around Fort Walton, Crestview, even out past Destin towards 30A and Sandestin that people can move to and not only save on what they're currently spending, but just have a more laid-back lifestyle.
Yes. Are you happier here compared to, it's been a number of years you've been here. But to raise your family, was this a great decision?
There are great schools here in Northwest Florida specifically, some of the best in Florida for sure. It's funny, I remember coming here to visit when we lived in Missouri, and my wife's mom worked in Niceville, which is where I live now. But I remember driving through this little town and saying, who would want to live in Niceville, Florida? And then 15 years later, here I am.
Here you are.
Here I are. And it's great. It's a great local community. Everybody's family. Everybody's nice. Everybody says hi. And Fort Walton Beach, Destin, even out to Navarre, Gulf Breeze. Just a great community to have your kids grow up in. You don't have to worry about crime. We don't see a lot of crime here in this area. We don't deal with a lot of the issues that the big cities have. And so it's just, like I said before, it's laid back, everybody's safe, and it's just a great place to live.
It's silent at nighttime. It really is. You know, and you say, okay, well, the tourists haven't come, but the traffic was there last night, 8 o'clock at night, driving in the area. But there's a stillness, there's this peacefulness that just kind of takes over when the lights go down. I mean, it's really a beautiful experience.
Absolutely. I don't know anybody who's moved here who just doesn't love it. We have a couple of congregants that just moved here from, I think, Arizona, and they can't believe they didn't move sooner.
That's it. That's how I feel. The idea was, settling into Tennessee for different reasons, but it was the idea of having a Jewish community, religious school for my sons. If I had known that I could move to Florida, I love the water, want to be by the beach. It's where I believe that, I'm going to come home to. Right. And thank you. I wouldn't be sitting here with you if it wasn't for you, because just meeting you in the congregation at Shabbat services where you saw opportunity for us to put a voice to Temple Beth Shalom. That's why we're doing this today. That, we want others to know there's options. There is a lifestyle, life balance, not just, work-life balance. I say, isn't it all encompassing that we should be able to wake up, be purposeful, which probably is a great time for me to segue into, Chad, may you live to be 300 years old. I ask every guest on this podcast, and I don't do it from a place of being morbid, but you are to know you, to listen to the people who work for you, the members of the congregation, how they trust you, they believe in you, and you serve from the minute I think you wake up. And yet you're humble, and you would say, no, Laurie, stop. Even though you told me yesterday to say that you were amazing 100 times, or 14 times. But how do you want to be remembered? What's your legacy? What's your footprint? There comes a time when, you're with us spiritually and not here present. What does that look like? It's
an interesting question, because I haven't really thought about it much. I remember walking into a temple for the first time and seeing people's names on things, like so and so donated this, and this chair was donated by this person, this prayer book was donated by this person. And coming from my background, it was an awkward thing. Like, why would you want your name on something? But now, as I've been more involved in it, and you get older, maybe I'm 15, 20 years older, you do start thinking about what's your legacy going to be. So at Temple Beth Shalom, I hope that I helped reinvigorate a community that was maybe kind of sliding towards having less people and less impact, and revitalizing the community understanding of what Judaism is. That as you get smaller as a congregation, you're not able to reach out as much. It's more focused on inward, keeping the bills paid, keeping the sidewalk swept and the grass done. All those things come on. But as you start to grow again, and especially bringing on Rabbi Delkow, who is very involved with the homeless community and a number of nonprofits that are engaged in the homeless situation, you start realizing that you can have a big impact.
Yes.
And so what I think, 20 years from now, when my name's on the plaque out there as one of the past presidents, that people think, Chad really worked hard.
Great.
He
Yes.
promised he would do some things, and he did them, and he gave us his all. And I think that's all I can hope for, is just that people realize that it's not easy to run a big company and then also find time to have a family and then also be president of a congregation. Usually, at least in my experience, it's been retired people that have been the president. And for me to be president and put the effort in, I think the only recognition I would want is that somebody looks back and says, man, he really did a lot.
I mean, you've made decisions or helped influence. You are sitting in a seat of influence where you can say, yes, we need a full-time rabbi. Yes, we need to have an extension to our membership outreach, the community, business development, so forth. The fact that you are within this congregation and quite a bit of the members are elderly and they have opinions. Everybody has an opinion. But
Sure.
you still step out of the box and say, we're going to do this. And you look for a majority vote. You know how to engage people to embrace the opportunity. You wouldn't push something if everyone was against it. But what part of you just continues to say, I think we have to do more, and it might cost money. And not everybody's going to be super happy about it. And being able to balance that, I'll just say what calls to you to do it. In the short amount of time I've known you, you've done it on multiple occasions as a president.
I don't know who said it or where it came from, but somebody said, "Where there is no man, be it the man." And I don't know who I need to give credit to that for, but I guess I find myself, even in my former religion, I just found myself in a place of service. I just always felt certain things had to be done, and if nobody else was going to do it, I should do it. Not to say that somebody else couldn't have been president, because there's plenty of great people in the congregation that can be president, but I think that certain things happen at certain times for a reason, and it was my turn, I guess. And so I didn't see anyone else stepping up to do it. I actually kind of fought against it a little bit, had some arguments with the past president about being the president, and I really felt that I might come in and be a little too strong in opinions and really be too pushy and might get some negative feedback. And maybe in the beginning, people weren't sure what to do with me coming in from a business perspective versus having grown up in Judaism and how temples are supposed to work. So, but we got over that pretty quickly. I think most people respect what I've tried to do, and I think part of that is because I respect what they've done. There's lots of people who've been here for a long time and have got Temple Beth Shalom to where it is, and I think sometimes you just got to be the guy. And it's not always when it's convenient,
Yes.
COVID certainly didn't make it convenient to hire a rabbi and try to build a congregation when everybody's staying at home for 2 years.
Yes.
But you got to do it. Sometimes it just has to be done. And I do think that too many people shy away from their moment.
Because it's uncomfortable. It's confrontation, accountability.
And if I'm being honest, because you could lose.
Right.
What happens if all the things that Chad wants to do don't turn out well?
Right. You're the man who made the decision
I made the decision. So there's a potential future where people look at the name Chad Hill on the board and they go, yeah, he's the one who made those decisions that caused us to have to regroup.
I shouldn't laugh, but you're right. It's the risk. But everything comes with risk, and if you try to avoid risk all the time, you don't get anywhere. You couldn't sit in the seat. First of all, you wear too many hats, and I speak from the members of the congregation and term provider with a team, a multi-million-dollar operation, nationwide life insurance company, the home of Big Lou.
Right.
And I shouldn't say it because I'm going back to something inappropriate, but you're talking about red pills and blue pills, and you're still talking about blue pills when we start talking about Big Lou. Like, this is just part of your journey. And even confrontation and questioning things. It's a huge part of your story is what I'm hearing, but you're finding the way to navigate and communicate from a place of how can I deliver it better? How can I still be the guy that says, I don't know if we should go this route, let's go this route. Maybe get off at the next exit.
Right.
So
I used to think it was like some kind of rare gift that I had to be able to kind of see through things. But I was probably taught that from my mom, and she kind of sees through things as well, and kind of see to the heart of the matter. So what I try to do is, there's always opposing ideas. And like we talked about earlier with bias, nobody's 100% right all the time. I've made big mistakes in business, tens of thousands of dollars of mistakes. I'm sure I've made mistakes here at Temple Beth Shalom, but you got to get a bunch of people together, hear them out, see it from everybody's perspective, and try to cut through to what's the reality? Not only what's good for the temple or what's good for the business, but can we actually do it? Do we have people to accomplish it? And so I guess ever since I've grown up, I've had that confrontational thought in my mind that, yeah, this is the way we've been doing it, but what if we do it different? Is there a better way to do it? Not necessarily that anybody's way was wrong, but can we do this a little bit differently and have a better result? With some closing remarks, running a business, being a leader in a religious organization, in a synagogue, what's ahead? The next year, next 2-3 years, I mean, you can paint the perfect picture, even though God has the plan, we're along for the ride. Tell me, what is it? How do you want to see the future unveil itself? Well, we hired Rabbi Delcal for 3 years. We'll be 2 years into it this summer, and most of that 2 years has been hampered by COVID. So this is the year. Now's the time. So we're now coming out of COVID, hopefully. Any more strains are hopefully going to be less important in our lives, and we'll be able to get back to some kind of normalcy. And so for the next year, the goal now is we got to get more people away from the virtual back into the building.
Yes.
We need to reach out more to the community so the community knows that we're here. Just so that, I'm amazed at people that travel into town like you didn't know we were here.
No idea. I literally was going to go to Pensacola for services.
And there are lots of Jewish people in the neighborhood, in Destin, 30A, that just don't know we're here. And we don't have a big ad budget to buy billboards and things like that. But to really get out into the community so that the people can see what Judaism is about, and to learn about Rabbi Delcal, and hopefully join us in that concept of making sure that Temple Beth Shalom and that Judaism has a place on the Emerald Coast for the next generation and the next generation.
Absolutely.
So this is our year of growth. We've spent money, we've spent time, resources, and now's the time for it to bear some fruit. And so we really need not just Rabbi Delcal, but we need everybody in the congregation who loves Temple Beth Shalom to get their shoes back on, to get back to work. There's things that we have to do in the community so that people know we're here, and that they know, and so they can just get a taste. And I think, like you said, if they just walk in the door, we're not asking them to come every Friday. We're not asking them to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars in donations and dues. But if they just come in the door and they meet the people, they'll be hooked.
And just from the place of if you're looking, you're in search, you're questioning. There are Chads out there. There are Michael Walkers. There are Laurie Guzmans that are just, changes in life, transitions, whatever, that just want a safe place to come for worship. And I love the fact that Rabbi D is doing classes, and he was saying that one of his classes on a religious topic, forgive me for not remembering, but most of the people that are attending his weekly class are Christian. And he loves to keep it non-denominational. It's universal. It's about educating.
One of the things that Michael Walker, we would lead the Torah study for a number of years before we had a full-time rabbi. When the student rabbi was in town, he would lead, and when he wasn't, we would lead. But having Rabbi Delcal here with breadth, just a depth of knowledge that we don't have on everything, and his ability to teach. He's teaching a number of classes. A Wednesday night class. He's got a Tuesday class on the book of Joshua. He's doing with St. Simon's. He's doing the non-denominational Christian and Jewish study of the book of Exodus right now on every other Thursday. He's given temple members and non-members, and we're open to seekers and people who are on the same path that say I was or Michael Walker was, to come and learn. with no preconceptions. We're not going to shout them down if they ask the wrong question, to come join us and just see what maybe a different view of the Bible might be compared to what you're used to. And we have a number of people that come through on a regular basis that they're on the path.
Yes.
But maybe they're not quite ready. They're still on the path. They're still waiting for their exit. And we're happy to engage them in conversation, invite them into the family, come eat with us, that kind of thing.
Yes.
And just be a place where people can come and not worry about if they ask the wrong question or if they've got the wrong theology, which is kind of that catchphrase.
Yeah, and unfortunately, you've told me it's part of your story. And so I think that wouldn't that be a part that feeds you from a passionate place to make sure that people are welcomed and they're not and if they want to question, they question, as long as it's done with love and respect and empathy.
That's the great thing about Judaism, in my opinion. The thing that really drew me, other than the fact that Jesus was Jewish and I was trying to learn about his religion versus the religion about him, I was trying to learn about the religion that he practiced in the early days. The great thing about Judaism is not so much about what you think, what you believe, although there are beliefs. It's about what you do. I wish that Judaism would have taken on the idea of orthopraxy versus orthodoxy. I know we call them Orthodox Jews or Orthodox Christians, but orthodox means correct belief.
Interesting.
Orthoprax means correct action. And Judaism is really about what you do. And belief comes into it. You're supposed to believe in God, and there's a couple of tenets of faith. But those aren't the first things. Action in Judaism leads to faith.
Yes.
Versus faith leading to action. It's backwards from Christianity. And a lot of great things about Christianity. 90% of what Christianity teaches is also what Judaism teaches. So we're very close. But in Judaism, you can come and think whatever you want to think. But practice. Learn.
It's another level.
Yeah.
You could talk about something, but actions speak louder than words is what I'm hearing you say.
Correct.
Right?
And definitely louder than words. And definitely louder than beliefs. Because lots of people can believe all kinds of things and do crazy, horrible things.
Yes.
But if you do the right thing, you build a practice of doing right.
Yes.
Doing what God expects, then the belief's going to come. And I know not every Jew will agree with what I just said, but that's my personal story, that if I can focus on doing the right thing, my mind's going to come along. My beliefs will come along to follow that.
I love it. It's just, I've heard often, do justly, act mercifully, right? And it is just correlates.
Walk humbly.
Yes, right? I mean, it really is that. And you are a humble man who works on God's payroll, and you are amazing. So I think I've covered another amazing for today.
Right.
But really, I love, it's a quote that you've said. I mean, everything you just shared, I feel like is just, you emphasized, you have your beliefs, but your actions speak so loudly. And I'm grateful that I know you. I'm grateful for the opportunity that you've given me to also help not only find my personal journey in looking for a Jewish home,
right.
But also for the fact that the people I've been blessed to get to know. My heart is
Absolutely.
So full this week, and I'm grateful. It really, Chad, you see grateful. Opportunity.
Right.
So may Temple Beth Shalom live on for 60 million years, and when we both are no longer here, may you, as you said, may we see your name on a plaque. Maybe my name shows up somewhere.
Right.
Laurie with a story that I was just in some way touched a life and influenced someone to find this beautiful congregation. So
absolutely.
Thank you for today.
Thank you.
Insiders, that's Chad Hill. He's amazing. He's the guy to know. We want to talk term provider, home of Big Lou, which is here in Fort Walton Beach, another hidden secret, nationwide life insurance company for those that are less than perfect, like Big Lou.
Right.
Big Lou's on meds and like you too, or right. I got it wrong.
Big Lou's like you, he's on meds too.
There we go. Okay. So on a silly note, I just say it's almost a Shabbat Shalom, so we won't say it today. But soon, just come check out Temple Beth Shalom. Chad Hill would love to know you and meet you.
Absolutely.
And I would just say, Insiders, have an awesome day. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching.
Thank you.
All right. Bye for now.